Hey guys, Dark Humility here with Lightning Fury Amazon Live Server Season 10 Project Diablo 2 Hardcore Lightning Fury Amazon Stronger Than Ever. This is about the time in the season when I make a video about my current character on the Hardcore Live server and demonstrate that character at near max power. It won't be max power in terms of softcore terms because I do need to maintain a certain minimum level of survivability in order to keep the character alive as she continues to journey towards level 99. However, she is significantly more powerful than in the first video I typically make, where I demonstrate a very strong version of the character, but not quite your max power. Anyway, we'll be going over the stats, the skills, the Mercenary, the gear, and even going to go over her dungeon setup to show how this very powerful dungeon buddy, as I term it on my tier list, how she is able to perform at max power. I don't typically play those builds that are also known to be very powerful in group mapping scenarios, and since this season we are, and it's one of the main ways we are getting to level 99, which is pushing dungeons in hardcore. It would be very cool to show you guys how to make that actually a reality on the Lightning Fury Amazon. So, let's check out a couple of things here. So, we have the stats. We'll just go over her stats again. And to make sure we have enough strength to wear all of our gear, even on swap. Double fouled Lidless Wall is allowing us to achieve that a lot easier on swap. Very key piece of gear here, considering that arcanes require so much strength. We're going to have maximum chance to block. And then, of course, so just going to put in as much dex that is required for that. Every time we level up, we will need a little bit more dex to maintain this. And then we're going to put enough, the rest of the points, into vitality. And then, of course, we're going to want our res as high as possible. Near max or max for hardcore. I'd say near max, and, overstacked on some res is definitely fine on hardcore. You just might want to watch some of those poison damage, physical damage conversion maps, as my poison res is not amazing on this current setup. But besides that, it is perfectly fine. Alright, of course, we'll check on the advanced stats here, so you guys can see some very important stats to this character. The main things that are going to make the most impact on how powerful this character is the percent lightning damage and the negative enemy lightning res. Also, of course, hitting level 40, just like I do on when I showed off the first version of this build, so that I can have 18 bolts. But honestly, you could even go for a little bit less. I'd say this is a nice sweet spot, though, for the hardcore version of the build. For the softcore version, I'd say 45 is definitely a lot more achievable, where you can get 19 bolts, just due to the fact they're using Spirit Ward instead of Storm Shield. So that is something interesting to kind of to note there. We have almost 50% base DR. And with the dungeon version of the build, we do have 50%, and with Barbo during dungeons, we actually have over 50% to help counteract the effects of amplified damage, which is really cool as well. But you'll see Elemental Pierce, negative enemy lightning resistance, and percent lightning damage is the major source of our damage. That is why we're not going pure skillers. We have 2 skillers to hit 40, and that is it. You can still hit 40 even on softcore, and then get rid of all the skillers and just have more damage as well. But of course, in softcore, there are other sources of plus skills as well, which I will explain, that are a lot easier to achieve. At any rate, though, that is how you're going to get your damage up. Hit recovery, hitting 52 is very nice. Has some FCR from Griffins, so you can recast Valkyries is nice. Not super important. Fast run walk is a very big stat, even bigger stat, I would say, on softcore. The one thing that can make your Lightning Fury Zon really pop is having, for instance, fast run walk instead of life and all of your charms down here. Instead, I only have like one that has fast. This is a good example charm of what you'd be stacking on software a lot more. But besides that, that's just how that goes. Of course, we have one source of mana leech, one source of life leech. I recommend at least one of each because these are great sustain for this build. Of course, before we really talk a bit more, we also have attack speed. Now, on the previous version of this build, the not stronger than ever version of this build, you might remember they were having some issues with attack speed, which was costing us lightning facets. We also didn't have the most amazing Arcane's Valor yet because we hadn't found one. Well, these kinds of things have changed on this build. So now we're getting our attack speed exclusively through the Thunderstroke itself, our gloves, and an attack speed corruption on the T-Gods. And we will hit the maximum breakpoint, which is very, very key for Lightning Fury at 89. This, of course, will allow us to have as many lightning facets as we possibly can without totally tanking our resistances. On this build, on a softcore version, though, you can kind of tank your resistance and you'll be fine for the most part, survivability-wise. And you can put more facets in the Spirit Ward, or Spirit Ward also would pretty much, once you fade anyway, would make your res fine. Anyway, you just would have less damage reduction, and it would be a lot less consistent. So that's why it's more of a softcore shield, and then you can throw lightning facets in that. Of course, when I show off my gear, I'll explain that a bit more. That is indeed what we're doing. We have 100% projectile pierce. This is very key on Lightning Fury. Lightning Fury projectile pierce is what's going to make your bolts, when they hit an enemy and start passing through enemies, it'll pass through a maximum number of enemies with 100% every time, and you don't have to worry about them stopping short. Life per kill and mana per kill are very good stats on this particular build. I only have 3 MPK and whatnot, as this character is also kind of designed for dungeons. For dungeons, the leech is definitely be a lot more important than the per kill, but for solo play, these can also be great sources of sustain. In addition to the leeches, you can use kind of a combination of the two on this build. And of course, having somewhere near 100 base magic find, I'd consider to be really good at a minimum on most builds if you're playing solo. So you can, with a combination of this and the magic find bonus from the maps, particularly as you go up the tiers, the magic find bonus getting higher, it's going to make you find a lot of good gear. And of course, you could have your base magic find even higher on many builds to make yourself find even more, which is possible perhaps even on slower builds. Alright. And then of course, skills. 1 point to Javelin and Sphere Mastery. It helps the physical damage component a little bit. Since this Javelin does pass through, it's mostly almost completely lightning damage. You'll notice there is a physical damage component to this skill. That is just the Javelin hitting the enemies, and it's not getting any kind of damage bonuses or multipliers compared to the lightning portion of the damage. So it's just this flat damage, but it is helped out by having 1 point into this, and that does help out your leeches a little bit, and does improve the damage a little bit. This is also why having your weapon ethereal would also improve the damage a little bit. However, not super important. So there definitely are some small ways I could still upgrade this stronger than ever build, but they are not many. Of course, you're going to max out Power Strike, Lightning Bolt, and Lightning Fury for all the Lightning Fury synergies. Lightning Bolt is your main single target skill. You'll notice it looks very similar, and I swap between it when I am finishing off an elite just before I go off to the next batch of enemies, or when I'm killing a boss. That is when to use that. In every other situation where you're attacking pretty much 2 or more enemies, you're going to want to use Lightning Fury. And then, of course, no bow skills. This is not a bow build. And I have exactly level 20 Valkyrie that I maintain on my main hand so that my Valkyries stay permanent. Of course, I have even higher, though. I create my Valkyries on my offhand where there are more plus skills. And of course, they will stay with me as long as I have 20 on my main hand. So that is important. And of course, I have one into this, just once again helps the physical damage component a tiny bit, not really much. And then the main thing is to hit that 100% pierce, and I'm using one item plus a bunch of points into pierce to achieve that. And then I have very high evade and dodge. And on softcore, I would just max evade every time for maximum movement speed. Since this is also kind of a dungeon build though, I would say even if it wasn't like kind of a hybrid dungeon solo build like this is, I'd probably still put more points into this even on hardcore, but because I'm a little bit hybridized, I have a bit of a split focus here. And I have a bit more into this, for instance, because most of the time you're going to be attacking, you're standing still. So you have more ability to maintain your ability to survive. But at any rate, this is where we're putting all of our points at this point in the build as we continue to level up past level 96. So that is where all those points will be going. Pretty straightforward stuff. Pretty straightforward stuff. Alright. And then next up, we have the Mercenary, I believe. Yes, the Mercenary. Mercenary is, so he's a bit upgraded since the last version of the Mercenary showed on my live hardcore character here. He's got an Infinity. He's still got the same laying of hands, got a fast runewalk string of ears. He's got Merman's Sprocket with max lightning though. That's just kind of nice for survivability against a lot of maps like Ruined Cistern. And he has a lot more movement speed and whatnot. As you can see, this is Puzzle Box now, and he's incredibly tanky with this Vampire. Vampire Gaze is so good in Season 10 with that buff hitting really high DR. I mean, his DR is still 45% roughly with Fortitude, and obviously Fortitude's making him do way more damage than the previous armor I had on, which is kind of a janky safety armor. So you can see his damage is way higher. He's doing a lot of damage. Obviously, if you don't want to invest as much in his survivability, because this is kind of a hybrid dungeon build with his actual dungeon items, I'll show off as well. You'll notice that he actually needs the low and the in here, or at least he needs like double or something like that, or like burr but like let's say you're just doing this for solo play, I'd probably invest more into attack speed so that you could hit faster and you could kill monsters faster with Infinity. He never really needs to do much anyway though, for the most part though, because we're just killing enemies and running past them so fast with this level of a build. But still, you can also see the defense with Fortitude is incredibly high too, so it's good stuff. You might be wondering why no Shadow Plate or Sacred Armor Fortitude. He doesn't have enough strength with this current setup, but there are alternative items that you can put on him to achieve that as well. I really am liking V-Gaze though in general this season. Crown of Ages is still a great option though to mitigate the number of instances where Amp is on your Merc and can get him one shot, so that's good as well. But in dungeons, we typically have someone with Cleansing, so once again, he's kind of like have a half dungeon, half solo setup, and that is what he looks like. He is a Defiance or a Mercenary for that damage reduction, and of course Infinity being the best way to run map solo, the best coverage of that negative res. If you're too poor to afford in that regard, you should be going something like Pus Spitter with the lower resist curse on like an Act 1 Mercenary, and that will also perform very well. Also Static Field from an Act 3 Mercenary, which they get for free without even using an item, and then just give them a lot of faster cast rate. That is another great solution to that problem. Okay. So best in slot here, this is pretty much the stronger than ever version here. Before we go over demos, of course I'm going to demo her soon after showing off all the gear. I'll show off the dungeon setup as well, so you guys can see some alternative gear I'm using so that I am not dying in the dungeons. And so the Mercenary is incredibly tanky, but also has a build that's more reflective of the team gameplay that you'll encounter in a dungeon. So right here we have a Thunderstroke with attack speed. Now, the key here is you need 49 or higher attack speed, at least on my current setup here, to have Put maximum lightning facets in my Arcane's Valor, which I will show off in a second. But this is how I'm getting my attack speed. So we have these, the gloves, and attack speed Thunder Gods, which the 2 lightning skills. Very, very key items. All of these items would find their home just right in softcore as well. So if you're building it on softcore, this is just how you do it. Now, you'll notice that compared to the last version of this build, we now have 3 perfect lightning facets in the Arcane's Valor instead of 1 not perfect one, and a 15 attack speed jewel. And of course, we have a 3-socketed Arcane's Valor with high defense. Hitting like 7,000 defense doesn't hurt for the survivability. I mean, we have dodge, evade, we have maximum block, we have high defense. This character is very hard to hit. She's incredibly tanky. It's definitely like, even while doing a lot of damage, she's very safe, which is why I say on softcore, you can get away with a lot in terms of having like consistent res or DR and use something like Spirit Ward instead of Storm Shield, because most of the time you'll still survive just fine, just because she has a lot of defense. But you can't count on most of the time on hardcore. You got to count on pretty much all the time, because just a couple of very bad RNG instances where you don't proc the Lesser Fate or something on the Spirit Ward and then get hit by a really bad pack and you're toast. That's not going to do it. Anyways, so yeah, really, really insane. Obviously, it's good defensively too with that flat PDR, which helps a little bit. Flat PDR is a lot more effective with high DR, or the damage mainly going to mana, like on Energy Shield, like on a Sorceress. But since we have high DR, the flat PDR is definitely doing more as well. And of course, high Vitality is really good stuff. Of course, you can see it's giving us a lot of health, so definitely not a weak defensive armor either. We still have the same Griffins that I showed off in the last one, but let's be real here, this Griffins is pretty hard to beat. It could only have like 1 more negative res, and it could have higher percent lightning skill damage, but not by a lot. So it's a pretty tough one to beat, period. Now we have this CBF, cannot be frozen, all resistances. Almost 100% perfect Maras with CBF now, which is allowing us to have the res to push our damage numbers even higher. You'll notice that the damage is roughly 200 higher, not just the negative res, which is negative 10 higher than the previous build, but the damage is about 200 higher as well, while allowing us to have high survivability. Now, obviously, in a perfect world where there's more people doing Lucian on hardcore, maybe we'd have, or of course, we're able to afford like a 50 higher an amulet. Could have like a plus skill CBF version of this with a desecration, and that would give us even more damage. So obviously, once again, this is not the most maxed out version of the build, even on hardcore, but it is very high up there. You've seen this Storm Shield before. This is my baby. Self-found, self-corrupted, self-boxed. This thing is insane. And of course, insane for hardcore. Getting that DR up all by itself so we can put damage everywhere else in the build. The double once again, that's just... Without that double I am absolutely kind of toasted on res. You can kind of already see I'm pushing it to its limit. You can see that we don't even have max fire res, poison res, so yeah, it's kind of important here. And also, runes, if you're gonna put them anywhere, the shield is the best place, because you get 22 all res each, and that is just not a bad spot for them in general. So it's a really good solution. And of course, having the Maras to boot as well to fit it, getting that cannot be frozen somewhere in the build, really, really key stuff. Of course, getting some magic find here on the gloves. 5 bows CTA still. I don't really care about 1 extra bow. I mean, that can help a little bit. Double fouled lidless, so we can wear the arcanes. We still have the same wisp projector. I just like it because it has MPK. It does help out the solo gameplay, and it gives us some MF, and it's a skill ring, so it's not like you can get 2 skill rings in PD2. You could, I think, in Path of Diablo, which is another mod, but that's pretty much as good as it's going to get anyway. You could use a BK ring, though, for more life leech, though. and you could do something similar. I do like having one source of like lightning absorb plus T-Gauze though makes you very tanky against lightning damage though, which can be very dangerous in Diablo 2, not just PD2, so you gotta watch that. The maximum lightning runs though plus the sword makes us we can tank some of the more egregious examples, more egregious abuses of lightning damage combining with like cold and fire damage to kill you without too much of an issue. And I just love this ring. I mean, I found and self-corrupted this ring too. It just maintains my mana so well. It's got the dual age and everything else. But you know, if you wanted another plus skill, you could definitely put it here, and it could help make your damage even slightly higher. And I love the faster run walk here. I mean, because I didn't put, you know, max out my fast run walk passive necessarily. This is helping us maintain very high fast run walk. So I like this combination of corruptions quite a bit. Obviously the pierce is coming from here. I think the best place to get your pierce is definitely the gloves. If you get it from, or sorry, the boots. If you get it from the belt or the gloves, then you have to sacrifice attack speed. And then that means you need attack speed maybe here, so you need like High Lords or something, which High Lords works, it's just you're automatically down a skill and you're down all resistances and you're down a lot of other things. Like attributes are very good too. You don't need the Deadly Strike is almost pointless on this build from High Lords, so when you're thinking about it, Mara's really does shore up all of the other types of weaknesses that this build has, and it's very key. So it's very good. And of course, so we have 2 life javelins. Since I'm not using my dungeon build right now, I have MF stuff, MF res. I have 40 MF geeds. You'll notice that my large charms are really good. I got a couple of upgrades in the large charms, nothing major. Once again, kind of struggling in the res department, but like if I was on softcore, there's definitely places to get another skill. You could get another skill here, here. You could even get 2 more skills here, potentially, maybe even 3 more. Desecration potentially on softcore. So you can see how that's interesting. Fun Worldstone shard on the side. But yeah, I mean, still have very good Torch and Annie though, very high. But because my negative enemy res is so high and my damage is already so high anyway, for most purposes, you'll see that there comes a point where more damage isn't going to do that much more. But it will. It would help out, especially against certain things like cows. So, before, of course, we go into the demos, though, I'm going to real quick show off some of my alternative gear. So this is something you saw before, so this could be really good. I was trying to get this desecrated, but the person died trying to do it, so I'll try to get that done later. But you never know, something like this could get a plus skill, and that would be very good. Of course, I'm struggling more in the res department these days, but it's still very good. So versus dungeons, I actually swap out the geeds for this so that my res is maxed out even more. We do have someone that is running Zenith pretty much always in the dungeons though, so I don't have to worry about it too much. But against like Conviction and a combination of Conviction and lower res, which does happen sometimes in dungeons, it's nice to be able to protect yourself from that. Of course, if you want more faster run walk, if you are using any GCs to hit that next bolt, which happens every 5 levels, you use these. Edge, plus the higher vendor geeds. I didn't bother getting a 15, but if you get a 15, plus the edge, you can buy orbs at the cheapest price. Always wearing a geeds, it gives you enough gold find to buy orbs and to maintain your maps. If you're just using a geeds or 1 gold find source somewhere on your gear, you're typically fine. Alright. And then, of course, there's these alternative small charms I use to shore up my res and to take off MF. When I do dungeons, I don't use any magic find at all. I'm also going to be using this so that my fire and poison res is actually good during dungeons, so I use this instead. It also gives me some replenished life. So then I replace this magic find one as well with that, and I replace those small charms with those. If I wanted a little bit more damage in some other scenarios, I got some more large charms. And then the real key thing is how I reset up the Mercenary. So I'll just show you guys real quick what the Mercenary looks like when I'm doing a dungeon on this build. So let's see here. So,
It's locked.
oops, yeah, it's locked. So you'll notice I'm going to use a string of years. It's even tankier, 2 max all res. Because we have a Conviction Paladin, which has way better Conviction aura and way more coverage, I'm going to be using, of course, this Storm Spire. Now, Storm Spire just gives me another form of negative enemy res, and it's got great AoE. He hits the monsters with a level 40. It is very high AoE, and allows me to absolutely shred the monsters that get hit by this. Very good. So not only do I get Paladin Conviction and have the negative res on my gear, I also have the static field from Stormspire, and I have a lower resistance from a Curse Necromancer or a Pus Spitter alternatively if you aren't using a Curse Necromancer in a dungeon. But man, Curse Necromancers are so good, and that is what we have been using, so it's really good stuff.
Impossible.
So you'll see there. We use the Innocence as well. Let me see. Yeah, so we have the Innocence as well. Rolled really good. But the Innocence allows this to proc all the time, even when he's not striking. Of course, it has the high attack speed, so his strikes also are proccing it. But even when he just gets close to enemies, he's mostly proccing it all the time anyway. And then, of course, maximum fire res plus all resistance, making his res really high. Also, half freeze duration does make him a bit more responsive. I don't really bother with CBF, but he does get half freeze duration. Innocence also helps with maximum poison res. And then faster run walk, just so that he has some fast run walk, so he is getting to the front line a bit more with more PDR. So he has maximum PDR inside of the dungeon. And you'll see here with all these things combined, he's not hitting incredibly hard, but he's proccing that very often, and he's incredibly tanky with all resistances north of 80. And of course, stacked, his defense is even higher, and his DR is even higher, and he's very tough to kill. He does die in the dungeons every once in a while. Of course, dungeons are incredibly dangerous and incredibly hard, and sometimes Bloodbringers can just one-shot him, so it can happen. But even most of the time, they can't one-shot him, so he's very, very tanky, and most of the time, he's very consistent and runs through dungeons and does a very good job proccing the static field. So that's a very solid build. Very solid build. But as I'm going to be demoing him in a solo gameplay here, you don't have to worry about that. And yeah, we'll just put on all the gear we were using on him before, and we will do that. Alright. Here we go. Now, let's do some demos and show her off being even stronger than ever. What a beast. Alright, so we'll do some short demos in these maps here just so you can see how powerful she has truly become. It's not a joke. You'll notice now. And at tier 1, you can pretty much just fire once and run. Maybe a couple times. They're just that powerful. Gotta say, Ghost Map, it's pretty good. The monsters are just dying way in front of us at this point. Look how tanky I am, just like tanking incredibly strong hits there. Notice I haven't used a potion once. I'll use a well, why not? Didn't you really need to though. This is you know, people might wonder, why is a Lightning Fury Amazon rated S tier and why is she a top 10 mapper? You can kind of see it, right? You can kind of see it. Yeah. And the crazy thing is that your damage, like I said, there's a lot more plus skills you can have. You know, you can use Spirit Ward instead of Storm Shield. There's a lot more plus skills you can have in general. The damage can be like 200, 300, even higher than this. And, on softcore, no problem. And you won't die that often, honestly. Since we're on hardcore and can't die at all, and also she's built for the hardest maps in the game, the tier 4s. Can only be made with tier 3 maps and Herodrum Scarabs. The dungeons. Which is very good. Now, of course, you could stick around to finish off more of the monsters if you want. But I think the best way to play a character like this is just to accept that you're not going to clear all the monsters, but you're going to clear almost all of them. You notice with the Mercenary's movement speed, he's running back up, and he's getting maximum coverage on that conviction aura. Concentration. Yeah, I can do this even on tier 3 maps. Tier 3 maps definitely could do more damage to you, though. Definitely gonna have to watch it. Oh my goodness. Whew. So yeah, that extra... The main thing that differentiates this build from the previous build is more lightning facets. If you want to wonder what's going on here. And as you can see, she can get more lightning facets and she can get more plus skills. With a less tanky version of the build. And that's the crazy part. If I was playing the softcore version, I mean, I could show this to you. Of course, you can just check out the softcore demo too, the closed beta demo, and that's a lot closer to what you'd be seeing, of course, which I also posted for this season. But of course, I thought I'd show off a version of this build that is actually on the hardcore live server, so you can see that it is fully realistic and you don't need admin codes to make it. It is beautiful and powerful. Of course, she is one of the strongest DPS in dungeons, period, or in group maps, which is why she's a quote-unquote a dungeon buddy per the classification on my tier list infographic. It's hard to get a build that feeds off of the health and density of monsters like this one does. Every once in a while, you might have to use like a... I mean, you don't even have to use Jews, really. You could just use normal healing potions. Now here I switched to Lightning Bolt to kill Yorick really fast, and as you can see, he is dead in seconds. Flash Ripper, that's really cool. Always revive your Valkyries if they die, but as you can see, don't really have to worry about that all that often. Pro tip, by the way, ghost maps are really good for finding high runes and charms and things like that. Obviously, it's hard to force roll one of them because it's a pretty rare stat, but if you do roll one, keep it and use it. There you go. There you go. I think the map is no more. I don't think there's anything more to this map, really. It's gone. It's out of here. Incredibly fast. And once again, this is hardcore, so like if you're seeing how fast she's running through these maps on hardcore and thinking, my goodness, you know. By the way, we do have a Blood Moon demo for you guys this time, which I feel like I kind of failed on in the previous video. Because let's be real here, Lightning Fury Amazon without Blood Moon, without cows is... It's kind of hard to see just how strong it is, but it's kind of crazy though, just how powerful it is. Even in a, even without like fully max damage. But this is like insanely good for the survivability we have. Just really strong stuff. Nice brick. I love it. I love the bricks. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Alright. We got some pre-made maps. Alright, let's go on to tier 2 though, so you guys can see a tier 2 map. Tier 2 map. These aren't even like the highest density maps, and once again, she does feed off of density. The more density, the stronger she is. And that actually goes for the more bolts you have too. But yeah, this is tier 2, this is Bastion's Keep, which is one of the best maps, period, I would say, for tier 2. Absolutely maddening levels of power, as you can see. And it's crazy what just a couple more lightning facets can do, really. Because that's really what this is. Couple more lightning facets, you know. Some cleanup on the res elsewhere, giving us some more skills down below. And that's it. And imagine having more lightning facets, you know. That's the thing. If you're playing softcore, it's very doable. On hardcore, it's a little tougher, I'd say. You know, the survivability, I would say, is not consistent enough. Coming from, of course, a very experienced hardcore player that does not tend to lose his characters to anything but nonsense like DCs or bugs. You can trust me when I say this. And of course, he's done a lot of testing on softcore, so do all my testing, all my tier lists in softcore, so I know where the limits are. I know when it starts getting dangerous. But, you know, at the end of the day, you don't have to trust me. You can try it yourself, you know. There's plenty of people that go with a quote-unquote softcore build on hardcore, and it lasts for a while, and then maybe it dies to something, you know. And they're cool with that because you know, they were able to play long enough and they would have gotten bored by that point anyway, so. Yeah, this is clearly this is just the peak of hardcore potential here for this build. This is how you get a build to 99 on softcore or hardcore and hitting that peak damage. It is very, very insane stuff. Where's the boss? Okay. Switch to lightning bolt. Well, it's just surrounded by a ton of enemies. Usually should switch to lightning bolt. There we go. Oh, even got a rerollable GC. That's always cool. Rerollable GC. Should do the event. Here we go. Storm tree. Notice when there's only one monster remaining, I switch to lightning bolt, finish him off, switch back to lightning fury. Why are we finding multiple flesh rippers? What is going on? I feel like I'm in a Groundhog Day right now. Just going through different maps, finding the same item. But I mean, we just burn through these maps insanely fast. We might miss a couple monsters here and there. Of course, this is why we used monsters per minute as our indicator and not map time, and we made the tier list. That's really important. Of course, this build performed incredibly well, so even if it is missing some monsters, it'd be fine. Yeah, just imagine too, also, so not only are we not at like the softcore damage level, these maps that we're testing on, they're like okay density, but they're not like 200 density. This build just gets more terrifying the more density we get. And the DPS is not that great because the monsters are dying too fast. What's interesting is in dungeons, I'm actually hitting like consistently somewhere between 200,000 and even 1 million DPS on this build. And that's just because the monsters are able to tank a bit. It makes a big difference. DPS is a function of like dealing damage to monsters simultaneously. And if the bolts are basically like one-shotting the monsters in like every case imaginable, they're passing through them too quickly, the damage isn't sticking. This is why poison damage, for you DPS people out there, that's why the poison damage builds reach such insane amounts of DPS. It's because you have a lot of damage running on monsters simultaneously, whereas on this build, it's very fleeting damage that is killing them very fast. This is like a perfect example of a build for why DPS is not the power level of a build. And then you can also show a build like some generic like poison damage level build. You can kind of see that. But it's a great example to demonstrate that phenomenon and how the calculator is working in the game. It's pretty interesting stuff there. Lost Temple. I don't need that. monsters are just dying way out in front of us, honestly. And the thing is, we have so much Pierce that we don't even need Conviction Ore on most of the monsters. Switch to Lightning Bolt real quick just to finish him off. Why not? Alright. That's pretty much all she wrote for this map here. And I think last time I showed off Fledgathon. I think this time I'll do Cistern. That Fledgathon was kind of scuffed anyway. Might have not been the best demonstration of her power to begin with. Sometimes you can roll certain stats that just aren't amazing. Wow, look at those. They are bricks from the heavens. Ooh, attack speed poison res jewel. That's decent. Right, that is decent. I'm gonna show off Ruined Cistern. It's a pretty tough map. Tier 3. No lightning immune. So once again, when you do maps in general, you do want to avoid maps with your immunities, particularly if you're something like a magic damage build, then it's like a hard no. But on anything where you can break the immunities, it's usually okay. If a lot of monsters though, and it's like it's a high percentage monster is surviving and it can't be broken in the map though, you don't want to be running it with your element like ever. That's a general guideline I use and talk about, I believe, in my mapping guide as well, so pretty important stuff. Alrighty. You can see, even in tier 3s, she is a menace. And obviously, tier 3s can be dangerous. More so than other tiers of maps. Wow, did we just find 2 Blood Moon maps in like 2 seconds? Oh, I'll take keys. Who wouldn't take keys, right? There's even a doll map, so that's kind of interesting. Got Stygian dolls, totally optional. It's a guest monster, so does not always spawn on these maps, but here we have it. We got some more of them in there, and this should be fun. Now see, what's interesting is I could let my Mercenary kill this, or I could let the Valkyries kill it, or whatever. But I don't even have to, though. At this point I'm so strong that monsters won't be able to impede my movement. So even if it's like a physical lightning immune monster, I can pretty much just ignore it at this point. Keep moving forward. Pretty much. I might have to use some potions once I get to tier 3s, that is a thing. Notice on the previous 2 maps, hardly ever using potions. Of course on software you will definitely, with those versions of the build, you're definitely going to be using more potions, but I'm just so tanky, you know. Remember with a couple of gear swaps as I showed off on my inventory, or in my stash, I am a dungeon Amazon, and dungeons, well, you gotta be ready for insane damage spikes, potentially. Even be able, with Barbo and everything else, to tank a Bloodbringer hit, so. Twilight's Reflection, nice. Yeah, let's see another man. You can see these incredibly powerful tier 3 monsters. Don't phase me. And with more density, it'd be even more devastating. Let's see here. Of course, being able to do tier 3s is almost as fast as you can do tier 1s or tier 2s, or just as fast. Is really good because they have better magic find stats, they have better density stats, so you're getting more monster kills and whatnot. You know, one monster that is like underrated in terms of how powerful it is are those destruction shadows. Those things are, ooh boy. They hit really hard. You'll notice when the density thins out, I appear weaker. That is not a that is not an illusion. That's why higher density, getting right up in front of the monsters is really nice. I don't really have the poison res. The boss can actually hit very hard, but if you do have the poison res, the boss is easy. It's fun. Once again, hardcore is a bit of a different world. Gotta watch certain things. Okay. Let's see. Forget, is this the path to the boss though, or is this the I think this might even be a poison damage physical conversion map too. So the only reason they're able to do any damage to me at all yeah, I think that's the boss. I don't know though. It's hard to tell. You go back though. We can go back. You can see though, more density the better. This character shreds through monsters. What's interesting too is on softcore you can also focus more on things like sustain as well. So like you could probably also get some more mana on MPK, which would remove the need for potions like ever. And then you're not really as worried about one-shots or near one-shots or two-shots. A quick two-shot. One way or another. I just took a lot of doll hits there. I got max block though, I'm not super concerned about dolls. In general. Let's see. Looks like there's a little bit of map over that way still. You still got some map to go. Yeah, if you ever want to target one enemy, a single target, switch to the lightning bolt. And you see the Merc is a lot stronger against single targets now. Previous version of the Mercenary is a little jank, honestly, that I showed off. It seems a lot more like what you're pretty much looking for. Oh. Wow, I actually bricked one. So for context, before I think the worst I ever did to one of those was got 3 sockets. Pretty much, honestly. Good density. I get that density up, man. Yeah, I would say this is like one of the strongest, tankiest builds there is, just period, in the entire game. I'd say Rabies also kind of shares that distinction. A Rabies Druid. These are the kinds of builds that have the potential to be not just insanely high damage, but insanely tanky, along with the really high damage, you know? It's a special classification of builds where not only can it get really high damage and it can really burn through a map, but it can become incredibly tanky to boot, making it just perfect for that 99 hardcore push. As the goal is still to make this my final class to hit 99 on hardcore. Achieving us a 99s in every class in hardcore. Let's see if we actually succeed. Dungeons can be very unpredictable, among other things, but that is a third Blood Moon map. My god. I just saw him kind of just like face tanking archers, being like, whatever. I think they even have extra poison damage in this map, and I'm just like shrugging them off. Like they are nothing. Dolls. Just run forward, keep pushing. Yeah, notice that really high lightning damage doesn't phase me either. Cool function of this build for sure. And a goal rune. I always like getting cool items in demos. It's neat. Vorting all res, very nice. An Odyssean's Awakening. Yeah, look at this. Found, I believe, 3 Blood Moon maps. Wow, that's it's gotta be a new record or something. That's crazy. Anyway, very, very good. And then, of course, something I didn't show off in the demo of the first version of the character, but I'm almost kind of glad I didn't, because having 2 more, -10 more elemental pierce, plus roughly 200 more damage, makes quite a difference here. And you will see just how much more powerful we are. Of course, if you want to see, once again, a more softcore version of the build, you can check out the demo I did in the closed beta. And that'll just demonstrate to you guys how ridiculous this build really gets at its upper limits when you're just pumping damage and don't have to worry about potential of losing your character in finality. Alright, so this is, let's see, wow. I mean, that's not terrible, but I can't really think of a good use for that, though. It's too bad bears don't need attack speed, otherwise the Cold Enchant Bear Sort could use that. But the Bear Sort needs attack speed on that weapon. It's pretty much 6 sockets or nothing. It's brutal, really brutal. Brutal but true. Alright, let's see. Alright, and this one has decent density. It's 133, but once again, nothing crazy. This will be the final demo of the Stronger Than Ever Javzon. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this awesome demonstration of power. And you'll see now, wait. Now look just how powerful this is. And see, if you're really rich, what I would do on this build is I would just keep running through. Worry about killing every last cow. This is how you get your monsters per minute right here. Look at this absolute devastation. Yikes, dude. what's crazy is I kind of demonstrated before, maximum life isn't that bad of a stat on this build because it does scale off of monster HP. Because it's able to hit more monsters. It is scaling off monster HP. It does. Yeah, just keep running through, man. Look how many counters she's able to kill and how quickly she's able to kill them. Kind of bonkers stuff. There aren't many builds that can kill this many cows this quickly. And this is really where you can see the stronger than ever really show up here. Like the other build, yeah, it doesn't kill those maps quite as fast as I was there, but you can kind of see that's not that far off. And like I said, you know, this is a hardcore version of the build. Just imagine what you can do on the softcore. If you thought Lightning Fury was dead in PD2, think again. It's not just an LOD build. Now, hardcore, you do gotta sometimes watch when the cows have like multiple auras. Because if they can get amp on you and like multiple auras, I'm really tanky, right? But they still hit really hard, and I've proved this before actually. Cows just hit incredibly hard. You don't want to get overly cocky sometimes and just run into whatever. But you'll notice that I killed them so fast that almost doesn't matter really. Not really. I can't even pick up all the items that I'd want to, there's just too many. And the crazy thing is the density can get even higher, and I've seen how she looks like a 200 density map, and my goodness, it is nutty stuff. What is this, Holy Freeze? That's... yeah, that's annoying. Holy Freeze lightning, I mean. Just run and gun, man, run and gun. You know, I remember in the beginning of the season, people were sad that Senpai hadn't buffed this skill, calling this skill bad. I wonder where those people are at now. Ah, ha ha ha. F Viper Magi. That's cute. Oh, my bow's running out. Switch to lightning bolt and bam, Dedge. Easy. No. Yeah, once you become tanky and once you become high enough damage, and this goes for hardcore or softcore. I mean, I'm on hardcore here, but once that combination gets high enough, you can just run. And this is why movement speed can be really good too, of course, but, you know, all things in balance in the hardcore universe. Can't go too hard on any of those offensive stats and not expect a potential drawback. Almost good items there. Wow. Yeah, notice the Mercenary. Mercenary can tank like a billion cows, he doesn't care. Of course, in dungeons, he's just even tankier, which is wild, but it helps, trust me. Mercenaries die in dungeons even at their very tankiest, so preventing that as much as possible is pretty key. You'll notice when the density starts to run out, my effectiveness drops quite a bit anyway. This is why you want to keep running to the next pack, you know? Maintaining as high of density as possible. So I can just keep one-shotting things. I stop one-shotting once I don't have enough monsters to key off of. Kind of a waste of time anyway, because I mean, once again, it's all about monsters per minute if you want to find loot or get experience, let's be real. It's the only thing that really matters in the universe. See if I can find a high rune here before the demo ends. I found a gold rune, but... So what's interesting here is I actually am able to exceed 100,000 DPS in cows. But trust me, if we get more HP and get on the monsters, my DPS gets insane on this build. They just die too fast. It's that simple. They just die too fast. Alright, here we go. Get a vile kappa. No way, right? I don't know about that one, man. Running out of cows, no! Oh man.
No.
Shameful, man, shameful. Yeah, you can just see my effectiveness go down though. When cows start running out. Feels bad, man. Okay. Switch to lightning bolt to kill him real quick. Finish him off. There's a large amount of cows in this here corner here. Okay. Well, I think you guys get the idea. This build is an absolute powerhouse. There's so many places where you can still get power, especially if you're on softcore. You can get a lot more plus skills on the amulet. You can get anywhere between 1 to 3 more skills, even potentially a desecration. It's definitely possible. Spirit ward, of course. Yeah, like why not? You can get 3 facets and a 2 Amazon skill shield. So there's even 3 more facets potentially. There's which is percent negative res, which is even better than plus skills. There's 2 more skills there. There's another skill you could even get on a ring. There are, I mean, for damage, I would say these items are pretty maxed out because you do need attack speed. in these regards, those types of things are pretty maxed out. That's pretty maxed out. Everything else, though, yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're not looking for more res, you could get more of these down here, which I actually have spares that I could increase my damage with more. If you're mainly running cows, too, you could definitely swap out a couple of these for more percent damage large charms, as those will give you more damage than the skillers. Of course, in general, mainly running the plus skills to hit the number of bolts. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, there's definitely spots there where you can get, you can get another plus skill on the ante. Yeah, so that's like it's like 7 more potential plus skills and 3 more facets. And if you're seeing how powerful this build already is in the end game content on hardcore, you could just see how absurd it can be on softcore. Anyway, guys, GG. This is my character on the hardcore PD2 ladder. She's level 96.5 plus, and we're going to continue running dungeons and other maps in hopes of hitting 99. And it's going to be a good time. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying your PD2 season, smashing it, and everything else. Anyway, guys, Dark Humility over and out. See you guys next time. And check out the timestamps for all portions of this video, including the demos and the gear and everything else, to see how to make this insanely powerful hardcore build, and even for tips how to optimize it for softcore. I'll see you guys next time. Let's get it.